yamo. Na mimi yangu inatanza dans 3 minutes. Mm.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the FBIS Africa session, the platform launch today. We're just going to give it a few minutes while people are joining, and we'll kick the meeting off in 2 or 3 minutes' time. Thank you. Welcome, everybody, to the FBIS Africa launch meeting. Thanks for joining us. We're just going to wait 1 or 2 more minutes while people are joining, and then we are going to start the meeting.
Or integrating something new. That thing will trigger a section of the regulation that will
Greetings again, everybody. We are now going to start the meeting. And yeah, I'd like to send out a warm welcome to everybody on this call today. Thank you very much for taking an hour out of your busy schedules to join us. And yeah, hopefully it's going to be a productive and enjoyable lunchtime call for most of us. Just to start off with a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, we are happy for this to be a fairly informal session. So we encourage you to ask questions, to interrupt us at any point. And the easiest way to do that is by raising your hand, using the hand raising icon, or just turn on your microphone and shout at us. That's also perfectly acceptable. The more we're interrupted, the better. And I'm aware that there may well be some non-English speakers in the audience. And so for anybody who would like to have a translation on in another language, for example, French or Portuguese or Arabic, that option is available in the more tab? The more tab at the bottom of your screen. So you can click the more tab and you can select the translation language that you would like to view on your screen as captions. This meeting is recorded, and we've had several requests to share the meeting recording with participants who aren't able to make this call today. So if anybody has an issue with that, please put up your hand or shout at us. But we will be sharing the recording of the meeting with all of you once we are done. If you are struggling to raise your hand or to turn on your microphone or to get your translations working, just post a message in the chat on the Zoom call, and we'll assist you with that. All right. So we're now going to start the session, I'll introduce myself first. I'm Jeremy Shelton. I work at the Freshwater Research Centre in Cape Town, South Africa, so right at the bottom of the continent. And I'm here alongside my close colleagues, Helen Dallas, who you'll hear from a little bit later, Nasli Little, who's also on the call, and she's keeping a beady eye on the chat, and our partners from Cartosa on the technical side. I'd like to acknowledge upfront that this is a project that's being funded by the JRS Biodiversity Foundation, and we are presenting today on behalf of our partners on this project, our core partners, who are shown at the bottom of this screen. We are going to keep this session fairly simple and concise, with the aim to keep as much time as possible for questions and for discussion. So we're going to start with a little bit of context about this FBIS Africa project. I'm going to walk you through the main objectives of the project. We're going to chat a little bit about the capacity, the human capacity side of this project, the data network for freshwater in Africa that's being developed, and then we'll have a demonstration followed by a discussion, an opportunity for questions. But as I said at the beginning, we are more than happy to be interrupted as we go. So to start off with, just a little bit of background and context about this project. Africa has some of the most beautiful, spectacular inland aquatic environments on the planet. In places like the Okavango Delta, one of the most diverse and beautiful wetlands that we have on Earth, to the Great Lakes, Tanganyika, Malawi, to some of our largest river systems like the Nile and the Zambezi. And then these systems are home to some wonderfully diverse and often very unique freshwater species, unique to Africa, many of them found nowhere else in the world. The cichlids of Lake Malawi, a world-renowned textbook example of speciation and evolution, our iconic top predator in freshwater environments in Africa, the tigerfish. There is the Goliath frog, one of the largest amphibians in the world, known from the rainforests of Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, a species that can reach up to 3 kilograms, incredible, and smaller, more subtle species like freshwater mussels and a range of different freshwater invertebrates that get really, really small. So a rich diversity, an incredible variety of freshwater species and environments we have in Africa. But in 2025 now, we find ourselves, as is the case in other parts of the world, facing a very serious and very critical conservation challenge in these freshwater ecosystems. In Africa, freshwater is really one of the most important resources for the people of Africa, critical for livelihoods, critical for economies, and essential for many species throughout the continent. We know that healthy aquatic ecosystems can sustain not only planetary and human well-being, but many species other than humans that depend on them. But Africa's natural freshwater resources, habitats, and environments are at risk, are under threat, and water security, biodiversity, and ecosystem health are in decline across the whole continent. And there's a lot at stake for the people and the biodiversity of Africa. In parallel to this conservation challenge, we're also facing a data challenge here in Africa, with a focus on freshwater data, particularly. In order to manage, to conserve, to restore these degrading inland water ecosystems, it's critical that we have access to data, especially biodiversity data that are reliable, that are current, that are recent, and that are comprehensive, that cover not just one part of the continent, but the whole continent. Data about our freshwater biodiversity in Africa. What is its status? Where are the species? What are the population trends in these species? And what are their distributions? However, at present, there's no system, there's no platform that provides these kinds of data at a continental scale for Africa. There are various smaller platforms in some parts of the continent, but many of Africa's largest freshwater systems. Examples include the Nile, the Zambezi, the Okavango that we looked at earlier, flow across political boundaries. These are transboundary systems. And so we really need access to freshwater biodiversity data at this broad continental scale if we're going to understand biodiversity dynamics at a meaningful scale. There is the GBIF, the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, and this is a very data-rich global repository. And we're aware that there are many, or at least several African countries and institutes that are publishing biodiversity data to the GBIF. However, the usability of the GBIF for monitoring, for management, for conservation planning and decision making is limited. And that's really where this new FBIS Africa platform comes in. Our mantra, our guiding principle is that this is being designed to be a platform focused on freshwater biodiversity data from Africa for Africa. And the vision for the platform is that conservation and management of freshwater ecosystems and freshwater biodiversity in Africa is underpinned by data-driven decision-making. The mission of this project is to provide open access to comprehensive and to reliable freshwater biodiversity data across Africa through a platform that's user-friendly, that provides powerful tools for searching the data, for downloading data, and for visualizing data. A little bit about the project and some of the different organizations involved. As I've mentioned in the opening slide, the project is being funded by the JRS Biodiversity Foundation, and the core implementers are the Freshwater Research Center and the technical lead on the project, Kartoza. There is a collective of project partners. These are organizations actively involved in freshwater data use or data generation at fairly large scales across Africa. And we have a growing list of stakeholders who are being engaged with through this project that also play critical roles in the use or the provision or the pipelines of freshwater data in this part of the world. But right at the core of all this, and really the focus of of today's session is the broader freshwater data community in Africa. And that includes all of us, everybody who is involved in collecting freshwater biodiversity data, uses freshwater biodiversity data, is part of this community. And that's really what we're going to focus on for the rest of the session. But first, I think it'll be good to just run through the main objectives of this project, and to note that this is a 4-year project that started about 6 months ago. So it's relatively early in the project, and we really wanted to set up this session to connect with as many of you as possible early on in the project, so that this can be as collaborative and as a community-driven effort as possible. So the first objective is to really develop this online database for freshwater biodiversity in Africa, and also a mobile application to go along with it, to build capacity for using and contributing to the platform among people all across the continent. There will be spatial layers and filters that will be identified and added to the platform to add value to the biodiversity data. There will be species lists that will be generated, refined, and used at the core of the platform to mobilize biodiversity data. We really want to make sure that access is improved to the data across the whole of the country, and that the platform can be sustained beyond the 4-year project that is currently funded. Like I said, today's focus really is on capacity building, and today's meeting is the start of what's hopefully going to be a really exciting and ongoing journey of data users across Africa connecting and working together to mobilize data, to use data, to help, importantly, guide the development and the growth of this new platform as well. As a means of explaining a fairly complex system as simply as possible, this shows some of the main workflows are involved in the FBIS Africa project. And let's see if I can get a laser pointer here. There we go. So the way that this system is working is that data are being mobilized, harmonized, and analyzed on the FBIS Africa platform. And this is a system that is being designed to be complementary to existing platforms like the GBIF, the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, and the IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. It's a system that's being designed to help facilitate data flows and data access, and to work with these platforms that already do provide incredible resources of biodiversity data or species conservation assessments, etc. And so it's to really link with these existing systems, to bring data in, and to make these data as usable and accessible as possible for outputs like monitoring and management, for policymaking, and for decision making. So that's really the plan with this platform in an absolute nutshell. A little bit more on the mechanics of how the platform works, which is important for all of you to understand, that if you're going to be using this platform at any point. So species lists are really at the heart of this platform. For example, a list of freshwater fishes in Africa, or a list of aquatic invertebrates in Africa, or amphibians. And it's really these lists that are used to mobilize data and to guide which data are brought into the platform and which data are ultimately going to be accessible. The platform links with the IUCN for red list status, and data can be mobilized against species lists by bringing in available data from the GBIF platform that already exists, but also by mobilizing new data that are not yet accessible. For example, data sets that might be still on data sheets or personal computers. And so there's going to be a big push in this project to try and unlock some of these historical data sets that are so valuable in tracking change in species distributions, for example, biodiversity data in general. So the FBIS platform at present, the FBIS Africa platform, is focused on 5 different modules or 5 different freshwater species groups. We have the freshwater fish, the amphibians, the crustaceans, the mollusks, and the dragonflies. And these have been selected because these are groups that have been or have had at least some level of conservation assessment by the IUCN. And one of the first steps in this project was to compile current and comprehensive species lists for these groups. And that's been done by starting off with what's available on these existing platforms, the IUCN on the GBIF, and bringing in additional data to make sure that the lists are current and reliable as well. And a little bit later in the session, you're going to see a demonstration by Helen, and she'll be showing you what these data actually look like and how they can be used and how these species lists really are central to the biodiversity data that are available on this platform. So in addition to the data points themselves, these species distribution records for freshwater taxa across Africa, the FBIS Africa platform also provides various tools that add value to these biodiversity data. Spatial layers are available for visualizing and contextualizing the biodiversity data. For example, administrative boundaries, the boundaries of countries, different conservation areas, different kinds of ecosystem types. There are various spatial and temporal filters that can be used to query subsets of the biodiversity data. There are dashboards of varying detail that can be used to drill down into the details, to generate summaries, a lot of it visual of the data sets for an area or a time period of interest. And there is also functionality to download raw data sets for an area or a time slice of interest as well. Helen's going to be showing you more on this on the site in her demonstration shortly. So bringing this all together, this is a project that's being built to have an impact on freshwater management, freshwater conservation, and freshwater decision-making in Africa. It's something that's going to complement existing platforms, that's going to use hopefully biodiversity data analysis tools that are going to be useful in converting these data into outputs such as species threat assessments, regional or national biodiversity assessments, spatial conservation planning. So that's what we're really working towards with this platform. So just coming back to our outline, I'm going to spend a little bit of time focusing on the human side of this project, this freshwater biodiversity network for Africa, before we head over to a live demonstration of the platform and the official launch, so to speak. So you have all received a little bit of information about this project and this platform already. You've been invited to today's meeting, and we're really excited to have you here. And this is hopefully the start of of your opportunity to contribute towards platform development. We want to be as inclusive as possible. And the way we are building the system is we're starting it very simply, but we really rely on user inputs and user suggestions and user requirements to help us really make it as useful and as impactful as possible. By being a part of this network, you will receive updates on the project and the platform. You will receive invitations to workshops about FBIS Africa, training sessions and other training resources as well. There will be data requests that get sent out over the next few years. And there will also be some opportunities to apply for small grants for data mobilization in different parts of the continent. But importantly, this is hopefully going to be a network that allows us all to connect with other like-minded freshwater data users across Africa. And we encourage you all to help us grow this network. So if you have any colleagues that are not on today's call, but you think they would like to be, we are more than happy to add them to the network. And you can just send us an email to fbisafrica@frcsa.org.za. Naz will post this email address in the chat. And we're hoping that this network can be something that a community that grows over time and extends the sort of the reach of this project and this platform to all the different parts of Africa where it's going to be useful. So that's really it from me. Before we hand over to Helen for a short demonstration of the platform, so you can all see how it looks, I'm happy to take any questions or comments on what we've chatted about so far, if there are any at this stage. All right. So I think then let's head over. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Helen. I see we do have a hand up from your good friend Bonani.
Yes. Jump in.
Bonani, you are muted, but you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask your question. While Bonani is hopefully figuring out how to unmute himself, we will take a question from Astrid and then from Ernest. Hi, Astrid.
Hi, Jeremy. Hi, Helen. Congratulations to this platform. It really looks stunning. So I think you are far beyond we in Europe. So two questions. So I hope you are going to liaise with the freshwater animal diversity assessment at some stage to harvest your taxonomic information. This is just a statement. And the other one is the question, are you harvested back by GBIF and how would you avoid the reharvesting from FBIS to,
Yeah, those are two great questions, Astrid. And yep, the answer to your first question is we are very excited about the FADA lists project. And we see, just having gone through the experience of trying to compile comprehensive and current species lists for Africa, we can see how much of a need there is for that. So, yep, definitely a key stakeholder, a key link in the project, and very excited about that. And great question about the data flow between FBIS Africa and the GBIF platform. The short answer is absolutely there will be functionality put in place that allows data to be shared from one platform to the other, but without duplicating the data. So basically, the biodiversity data will be harmonized between the two platforms as efficiently as possible. Great point. Let's go over to, let's see if Bonani's microphone is working yet. Bonani, your microphone can be unmuted at the bottom left of your screen if you're able to do that. Alternatively, you can type your question into the chat. Let's go over to Ernest. Ernest, welcome. You're welcome to unmute yourself.
Yeah, Jeremy. Good morning, everyone. I really appreciate this opportunity to be a part of these important networks. That's my first times. And thank you also to Jeremy for this all coordinations as the network started. I am Ernest from Cameroon, and my question concern the data collections. So I want to know if when the user collect the data, is it any standard protocols that you have to use? Because some users generally found some difficulty in the identification step. There are someone who are just and other ones who just limit to the genius components. So I want to know if there is any standard protocols that you have to use. My second question concern the microinvertebrate components. I see that you mostly make a focus on Odonata. What about the entire microinvertebrate? Because in Cameroon, I make a focus on the annelid components. So I want to know if there is any other components of microvertebrate that we have to make a focus. Thank you.
Thanks, Ernest. It's great to have you on the call and nice to meet you face to face. I will address your first question as best I can and then hand over to Helen to speak to the invertebrates. In terms of adding data to the platform, it's something that I didn't go into in too much detail, but there is basically the platform accepts any biodiversity data records so long as they have spatial coordinates, the species that was recorded, and the date when it was recorded. So those are really just the most basic requirements. However, there's also scope to include additional information, for example, the sampling method or the sampling effort or the abundance and various other data attributes as well. And these data can be uploaded either individually by adding a site and a record straight to the platform, but in many cases, people may have a spreadsheet of data, and we have fairly simple standard formats for arranging the data, and then they can be uploaded directly to the platform. And so that's something that we are here to assist with. Anybody who has data sets that are not on the GBIF, but they'd love these data to be in the public domain so that they can be used for decision-making and planning, please get in touch with us on the FBIS email address, and we'd love to work with you on mobilizing those data. And so that's just a little bit on data uploads. And then Helen, perhaps would you be able to comment on the invertebrate data on the platform?
Sure. I lost some of the sound. It was a very difficult line. Could you just briefly summarize, Ernest, your question around the inverts again? Sorry for that.
Yes, Helen. My questions concern the microvertebrate components. I see that during the presentations, we make a focus on Crustacea, Mollusca, and Odonatas. So the microvertebrates is not only this component. So I want to know if there's another component that we can add for the investigations, like
Okay.
analytes and other things.
Yes. Totally. No, I'll get you now. Thank you for that. So as Jeremy mentioned at the start, we chose these 5 groups to start with because they were the ones focused on for red listing at IUCN, but it's not necessarily the only ones that we will include in the future. So if you go to the South African version, for example, we've got a group that's just invertebrates. So everything is included, the annelids, the micro, the macro crustaceans. So it's just our starting point with these groups. I guess you could say the lower hanging fruits, but ultimately we'd like to make it all freshwater. And especially once, Astrid, also speaking to the FADA project, that's such a valuable project that we're collaborating with at the FRC, we'll definitely integrate that. And as the taxonomy improves, we can start mobilizing more and more biodiversity modules on the platform. Thank you for that. Hopefully
Thanks, Helen, and thanks, Ernest. We have 3 questions in the chat, which I will read out. The first question is from Jane Doherty, who asks whether we are looking at invasive species too. Jane, the answer is yes. So we're including all freshwater species that are present in Africa. So yes, invasive species are included. And we have a question from Stranton Narain, whom asked, is the platform going to draw possible linkages with water quality data? Helen, I think perhaps that's one you can comment on.
Sure. So at the moment, the FBIS Africa only has freshwater biodiversity data, but there is an abiotic module that allows for uploading of water quality data if and when it's available. We're not going to link with any specific online water quality database, but it is possible to upload water quality data already on the platform through the preceding projects on which this platform is based.
Thanks, Helen. Banani, unfortunately, was not able to get his microphone on, but he wanted to just congratulate the team on the development of the project so far. So thank you, Banani. That's great to hear that from you. And Banani asks, will you load citizen science data onto the platform? As his first question. I'm happy to take that. The answer is yes, because all of the available biodiversity data on the GBIF are brought into the FBIS Africa system. There are a lot of citizen science data in the form of iNaturalist data that are available on FBIS Africa. So that'll be all of the research grade iNaturalist data records for freshwater species in Africa will be available. His second question is, SDG 623 are also keen on such data. Will you consider adding basic water quality parameters as well? So, Helen, I think that's a question that you've spoken to already.
Mm-hmm.
And his third question is, will you ensure some incentives for data collection or entirely rely on volunteers? And that's a very good question, Bonani. So 2 of the main incentives that are at play here is, firstly, people are able to, once you register, you're able to share data, and then it's really great to know that those data can then be used for purposes beyond what they're originally collected for. So you may have collected a data set that was used in a one particular study or a student thesis, but those data may have a real big impact down the line on by being reused for another purpose. So I guess that's relying on people's goodwill, but we are also aware that mobilizing data is a challenge. It does take resources, and so a little bit later in the project, over the next year or two, we're going to be providing, data mobilization, small grants for different individuals and organizations across the country to just assist with some of those data mobilization efforts. Okay, we have a few more questions coming through in the chat. I think we'll take another two, and then we'll head over to the platform demonstration, and then there'll be time for more questions after that. So another question from Stranton was, can data generated by citizen science be uploaded? We've already answered that question, but thank you. It's a very good question. And the way that the citizen science data are verified is we are pulling into the FBIS Africa platform only research grade iNaturalist data records. All right. Emmanuel from Nigeria, greetings. So he wanted to ask, would there be a taxonomic verification and coordinate cleaning of the data? It would be great to include data on other aquatic invertebrate groups like mayflies, stoneflies, caddisflies, considering their significance as bio indicators. Helen, perhaps you'd like to answer that question from Emmanuel?
Thanks. Yeah, so in terms of sort of taxonomic verification, it's sort of beyond the scope for FBIS Africa administrators to verify the taxonomy of an individual who wants to submit their data. The reliance is on the persons contributing the data. In some instances, it might be already published in a peer-reviewed paper. It might be lodged with the museum. So we won't be verifying each and every record. But what we have done for the South African, and we probably integrated for the Africa scale one, is, certain species might have a regional specificity, and we can build in checks and balances for where that species might or might not be expected to occur. So that would be one verification. And to the second point, which was around the other groups, I think, we are very much hoping to expand it. But as I mentioned before, we focused on the ones that were linked to IUCN in terms of global conservation status. But there's no reason why we won't expand it going forward. Okay.
Great, thanks, Helen. And we do have one or two more questions in the chat, and we will get to those. But I think let's dive into let's have a look at the platform, and then we'll revisit the questions in the chat. So keep them coming.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and zoom straight into the platform. Okay, so hopefully you can all see my screen. And what I'm going to do...
It looks good and clear.
Perfect. Thanks, Jim. Is to kind of give you a whirlwind tour of what FBIS Africa looks like now. And then hopefully you'll all at your leisure dive in a bit more and explore on your own, and then email us if you have questions. And with time, we'll all learn to love and hopefully use this platform both for putting data into it, but also for extracting data and using it in a meaningful way. Okay, so this is our homepage, FBIS Africa. And the first thing obviously you need to do is if you're new to the platform, is to sign up. Very easy to do. But since I'm already a registered user, I'm going to initially just log straight in. So very simple registration process. You can explore the map without logging in, but as soon as you want to download data or upload data, you need to be registered. It opens up the map, but before we go there, I'd like to just jump to our landing page to just spend a bit of time explaining what is on it. So nice visual front end, but then we've got these headline dashboards, which kind of is quite a big statement about what we have on the platform, just in a very easy to see visual way. And as you've already gathered, we've got 5 biodiversity modules currently: fish, amphibians, odonates, mollusks, and crustaceans. And for each of these, we've used the IUCN, each of these categories is the IUCN global conservation status categories. Moving swiftly down through the landing page, just to give you a flavor of the platform, there's a little bit of information about what FBIS Africa is and what the intention is around it, which Jeremy has already outlined beautifully. And then, as he mentioned, information around freshwater life, the people of Africa, and the fact that our systems are under huge threat. We've delved into a few things around Africa's biodiversity roadmap, for example, the framework, the challenge, and the Shoal 1000 project, just to give you a little bit more insight into what's happening in Africa at a continental scale and to kind of set the stage for the platform and how it could be of value. And why are we doing this? Why have we developed FBIS Africa? We want the platform to be a source of information and a usable resource for everyone working in the freshwater space in Africa. And hopefully with time bend back the curve of biodiversity loss. We're all aware that it's happening and that we as freshwater practitioners need to attempt to do what we can to change the trajectory from a downwards to an upwards one. And just again, to reiterate, the platform is a sort of a consolidation platform, bringing in existing systems, using tools for making important decisions and policy and spatial planning, etc., going forward. And again, just to reiterate, our partners are extremely important in the whole scheme of things. So whizzing back, I'm just going to mention, before diving into the map, just along the top of the platform, we've got in things about diving into the map, which you can also access via Explore, and I will go there in a moment. But then we've got things such as what site visits and source references are available, information for contacting us. And this is probably quite a good thing for those of you who are new to the platform completely. This gives you a bit of context around where FBIS Africa was born. It's piggybacked off the FBIS Africa for South Africa that was developed over the last 7 years. And collaboratively, we've worked with a number of other platforms and organizations to roll out a system for the continent of Africa. So feel free to read that at your leisure. We also have a help tab, which is a sort of work in progress, but it does give you information to an online resource, the Biodiversity Information Management System, which tells you how to use the platform. And it's not just for users, it's also for administrators and developers. And then soon to come, hot off the press, is a short video provided or created by Jeremy on the platform, which will, in 5 minutes, give you a really good sense of what to do and how to do it. And then importantly, we always try and encourage where people do use the data from any platform, including FBIS Africa, that there's recognition for the citation, not just the platform itself, but also the actual metadata that you'll use. And you'll understand what I mean when I unpack it in a bit more detail. And then on the right-hand side are all the either admin tools or dashboard type access points that you can get as a user, or if you are administrator, a super user. Okay, so for now, let's dive into the map. And I'm going to focus on 3 components of what's called, this area here is called the toolbar. I'm going to first highlight some of the layers. You've already got an inkling of it from Jeremy's presentation. And then I'm going to dive into the filters. And then I'm going to go through 3 workflows that should give you a fairly good understanding of what you can do with the platform and how you can extract data. Importantly, this presentation or this whirlwind tour is, I'm not going to dive into adding data. That's going to be a whole new, another set of training, and it'll be focused on those of you who are actually going to contribute data to the platform. This is more to get you just up to speed with what you can and can't do on the platform. Okay, so this icon represents the spatial layers. As mentioned, this is a facility or functionality to allow you to visualize the data on the platform. And so we've got things like political boundaries, freshwater ecoregions of the world. Importantly, all of these layers can be modified in terms of how opaque or non-opaque you want them. They can be shifted up and down, so there's a lot of flexibility in terms of that. And very importantly, there's metadata. So for every single spatial layer we've published to the platform, you can find out what it is, where it was from, and all of the information you need to know about it. Briefly, let's just go through the layers we've got. So we've got our administrative boundaries. We've got 2 broad-scale freshwater ecoregions and biomes of Africa. Then we've got a layer of rivers, hydro rivers, and we've got a layer for lakes and a layer for wetland maps. So all the key freshwater habitats. We've also got extensive hydro basins at various spatial scales, from 3 to 9, I think it is, which you can turn on and off. And then we've got a number of conservation and protected area layers. So we've got global biodiversity hotspots, which can be turned on and off and highlighted. We've got Ramsar sites, key biodiversity areas, and then we've got polygon and centroids of protected areas at a continental scale. Okay, I'm now going to zoom into the filtering options. So for every single spatial layer that is visualized on the platform, where appropriate, we've developed what you call a spatial filter. So whilst layers are for visualizing the data, filters are for extracting subsets of data based on a particular selection criteria. And we have our spatial filters, but in addition, we have a whole host of other filters that I'm going to just run through briefly now. So for any of these, this is called a filter draw. If you click on the draw, you can search for any one module. So if I was to not create any search criteria and just click the arrow, you'll see on the platform at the moment, and this is just from harvesting GBIF data, we've got just over 550,000 freshwater biodiversity occurrence records. If I then wanted to zoom in on just fish, I could apply that filter, and this is standardized for all the filters. By clicking it and hitting apply, you then get the subset of data. So we've got just under 250,000 freshwater fish records, and then you would clear that filter. So I'm going to run through these briefly. There were questions around, can we include water quality data? So whilst the FBIS Africa platform only have biodiversity data at the moment, there is functionality on the underlying platforms, like the South African one, to include water temperature time series data as well as physicochemistry data, which is in fact water quality data. And there is functionality for uploading that data and visualizing that data if and when it's available. There's a draw for data sources. So at the moment, all the data on the platform is GBIF data, but going forward, as Jeremy mentioned, we're very much going to rely and reach out to data providers who have data sets that perhaps have already been published, and they want this data to be reused for not just one thesis or one paper to make a difference in terms of our continent. And that data would be uploaded and it would get a tag FBIS Africa data under this draw. And you could select just GBIF or just FBIS Africa. The default is both. There's also an opportunity to validate data. This is admin people that when data are uploaded, there is some quality checking going on. All data on the platform is immediately available, but if you only want validated data, you have the opportunity to select that filter. You could also select a temporal scale. So if you're only interested in data from a particular time period, you can use a sliding scale, or you can select one or other month. I'm going to jump onto the next one. I'll come back to spatial in a minute. There is a functionality, and this again speaks to that invasive species question. At the moment, we haven't tagged any taxa with origin, as in are they non-native or native, or endemism. It's quite a hard thing to do endemism at a continental scale. It's more applicable within country. And then invasion status. So we do have some invasive species, North African species, that are already well entrenched in certain parts of the continent. So once we have tagged our different species with these categories, we'd be able to filter on origin, endemism, and invasion. There is already functionality to select on conservation status because this is pulled directly from IUCN. And then there is a reference category, which allows, at the moment, the only data on the platform is a database because it's GBIF data. But going forward, we hope to include data from articles, theses, reports, books, unpublished data. And this filter allows you to just select one or more of these categories. And then both study reference and owner relate to who kind of owns the data or what report a study is associated with. So at the moment, all data is GBIF, but going forward, if I had put data from my study, Dallas 2025, I could search on it in this study reference and then very quickly access just the data that's specifically linked to a source reference or a study reference. At this stage, it's important just to point out that when you add data to the platform, you become and remain the owner of that data, and this is where you would find it. So this could be an individual. It could also, for example, be an organization. And in fact, in study reference, if the Nature Conservancy, for example, wanted to have their own virtual database, that was always labeled there so that they could access it easily, this is where we would do it. And last but not least, in terms of the filters, is what we've built in called a decision support tool. This isn't used at the moment, but going forward, you would use it, for example, if there was IUCN red listings at a continental scale or for a country done in 2025 for amphibians, these data could be tagged, and then one could very easily access that decision support tool or workflow by just applying this particular filter. Okay, so I'm going to now dive into a couple of workflows. The first is I'm wanting to focus on a particular spatial filter. So what I'm going to do here is open up my options for generating spatial filters. And before the specific workflow, if you recall the spatial layers that I mentioned, you will see similarities between these. So often layers become filters, so you can select a particular country. In this instance, you can select a particular freshwater ecoregion or biome. You can select a freshwater ecosystem type, so a specific lake that you're interested in, Lake Chad, for example, or a wetland type or class, and then some of the major river basins based on the layers uploaded. And then we have two filters that are linked to conservation areas. Sorry, conservation area and protected areas. So there are three under conservation areas. So you can select a key biodiversity area. You can either click on all the biodiversity areas or open up the plus to select a specific one. And the same for biodiversity hotspots and the same for Ramsar sites. And then last but not least, in terms of spatial filters, we've got our protected areas. So these could be, I'm interested in a very particular protected area by name, and they're alphabetically arranged, or in terms of general. So I'm interested in all the biosphere reserves, and I want the recurrence records in those biosphere reserves as a general collective term. Okay, so let's dive into one example. I'm going to select a freshwater ecoregion of the world, and I think I'm going to go for coastal East Africa. I'm going to apply that filter. So you'll remember we had 540,000 odd records. Now in that particular filter or subset of data, that freshwater ecoregion, we have a total of just over 14,000 records. And if I then click on this tab, this button, it opens up the multi-site overview panel on the right-hand side. And you can see all of our biodiversity module groups, the number of records, or obviously origin and endemism are not populated yet, but we've got our global conservation status, and then the number of taxa within each of the biodiversity modules. But what I'd like to do now is to add another filter in terms of conservation status. So I'm particularly interested in critically endangered vulnerable and near vulnerable fish species. So of that first query where I used a spatial query, I'm now zooming in to those of high conservation status or at-risk conservation status. There are 959 records now, and by clicking that site overview, I can then drill down into my dashboard. So when you click on any of these buttons here, it means you open up the dashboard for that particular module. So I will click on fish by way of example. It opens up the dashboard. We've designed the dashboards in a very standardized way. So we have several dashboards. The one is a multi-site dashboard. The one is a single site dashboard, which I will show you in a while. And the one is a taxon dashboard. So each of these provides some filter history, what you actually selected, a distribution chart, and then an overview panel, which gives you some summary information around the data. And then the actual site visits, which you can drill down to, a table of occurrence data, and then on this side, pie charts showing relevance. Obviously, this one is not really applicable at Africa scale, so we more work on the global. At the moment, they're just the same. And then for each of these, an occurrence chart over time from the earliest record, which in this case is 1897, all the way through to 2019, by occurrence, by taxa, which gets a bit messy when you've got a lot of taxa, by origin and endemism, which are unknown at this stage, but what is really nice is something like this with conservation status. So at a glance, you can see over time what is the conservation status of our fish species in this particular ecoregion, and these are interoperable, so you can actually open and close. Now, wherever you see this button here, you can download that. It becomes we just ask you what you want it for, and then it becomes an SVG, which is available for putting into reports. And at the bottom of the chart of this dashboard, very importantly, is a metadata table, which, remember I mentioned, anyone who contributes to this platform remains the owner of the data. This is where your work, if you did a PhD, if you published a paper, all of that information would be captured here. And anyone then using this data would also cite that particular, include that in the citation when they produced a report or whatever they produced. And what I'd like to speak to now is like at the bottom of this occurrence data table, you have three options. The one is to download the data as either as a CSV or an Excel. And when you do that, you get a notification saying your download is underway, and then it'll be sent to you by email. And I'm going to open up an example and show that what that looks like now. And then you also have the option to download a checklist, which I will also show you, and download the GBIF ID specifically. So if I just jump briefly to, I already downloaded a CSV file or an Excel file. I have hidden a few columns which are not really relevant at the moment for today's session, but each of these rows is a unique occurrence record that has, as Jeremy said, the most important thing we need are longitude and latitude here, a sampling date, and then the taxon, the species name. But each record has a unique UUID. We allocated a site code based on the ISO coding for countries in Africa. If a description's been available, it's shown here. And then moving through, these are all the taxonomic bits of information. In this case, this is it's a genus species. It shows you the rank, origin, conservation status, and then very useful in terms of, remember, this is all GBIF data. You can see who collected the data, what was the institute, it's part of GBIF. And then personally, I really like the fact that there is a data set. So you can see what the data set is. Here's one of our SIAB, South African Institute of Aquatic Biodiversity records from the area. There are a number of them for this ecoregion, the dataset key, and then any spatial information that was included on the platform gets pulled down as well. So we, remember, chose coastal East Africa, but moving along, you can see which records were actually in biodiversity hotspots, heritage sites, etc., etc., etc. So I won't go in it too exhaustively, but that gives you a good sense of the sort of information you can get when you download a CSV file. And what I'd like to just show you now is not doing this checklist, but I'd like to show you a checklist where a use case might just be, I would like to get a checklist for all species of amphibians in Botswana. So let's put on or in a country, we'll put on our spatial filter, select Botswana, click it, zoom across. I'm going to choose amphibians this time. And then I would go down to this download the checklist. I've already done it, so there wasn't a time lag. But essentially, you would then get sorry, let me just move that out the way. A checklist of amphibian species in Botswana, including the accepted scientific name and authority, the common name, the threat status based on IUCN, and the sources of information. So in this case, it's what I mentioned, the data set gets captured here, and the Excel file even provides a bit more extra information. So quite a useful resource, I think, for like national parks or protected areas or countries to get a first stab at what their taxon or species list may be. So I'm going to just close this now. This is a very important button. It's called the reset button. In between doing queries or filters, you always want to be doing that, because sometimes you can inadvertently end up with nothing because you've got a filter on that you forgot about. So the second workflow I want to show you is where I want to actually use the map and zoom into a particular area. Now, I've been very fortunate through my freshwater career to do some work in Botswana in the Delta. So I'm now zooming in just using my scroll mouse, or you can also use this mechanism, shift and create a square with your mouse. And I'm interested in the occurrence records that are kind of between Namibia, Caprivi Strip, and the upper panhandle of Botswana. And we've developed a tool, or rather our wonderful colleagues at Cartosa have developed a tool, whereby you can draw a polygon around any single set of data points. So here I'm going to draw a polygon that's going to cut through the area that I'm particularly interested in. And then I'm going to update my search. And if I then click on that site overview, I get the breakdown for each of my groups for that particular polygon. But what I want to show you now is of these sites, I'm interested in finding the site that has the most occurrence records. So on the top here, you've got options for sorting these records in various ways. So I'm going to say, please sort it with the highest occurrence first. And then I'm going to use this to open up and see either the site with the most occurrences or the taxa with the most occurrences. So for now, for today's demonstration, I'm going to focus on the site with the most occurrences. So this is a unique site with a specific georeference. And I'm now going to open up the dashboard. It's at Popper Rapids in Namibia. I'm going to open up a dashboard so that you can see what a single site dashboard for fish looks like. Again, the same look and feel in terms of pie charts, filter, distribution map, but where things get a little bit more interesting is the overview table, where because this is a unique point in space, we're able to provide all sorts of information such as the political boundary, what if it's in a biodiversity area, what the biome is, and then a breakdown in terms of species occurrences and conservation status in this instance. And again, as with the multi-site, you can drill down to all of the original data, the occurrence charts, etc., and the metadata. Okay, so that's, for example, a single site. Now, the last one I'm going to show you before we open up for chats is I'm going to clear my polygon and importantly reset, is I'm a researcher. I've been working on the African catfish and I want to find out where all the distribution records are for Clarius gariepinus. I'm a bug person, so I always seem to spell it wrong. There we go. Okay, Clarius gariepinus. I click my arrow and I get just over 6,300 records for Clarius gariepinus. You can see the distribution. And what I'm now going to do is open this tab here. You can either click on the actual name or the taxon overview. It doesn't matter. It'll take you to the same place. I want to show you the taxon dashboard. So it gives you an overview of the species. It's got a link to the GBIF page. Obviously, origin and endemism we don't have at the moment, but it shows you the conservation status. It pulls in images from GBIF. It's got a link to the IUCN page. And then right at the bottom, you can open the detailed dashboard for a specific taxon where it provides, again, a distribution map, an overview table where you can download the data for that single species, the names and the taxonomy, and CITE is obviously not really relevant for this species, but it's included if you need it. But now I'm looking at my occurrence record and it feels like this is really messy. So actually I'm more interested in data from 2000 onwards. So I'm going to just close my dashboard and apply the last one more filter and say, please just give me records from 2000 onwards. Apply that filter, go back to the taxon dashboard, and then have another look. And at that stage, I should get a more easy to read graph. So from the last 25 years, I can see my occurrence records for that species. And as I say, all of these are downloadable and the actual data is downloadable here. And I think I'm going to leave it there. I think I've hopefully given you enough of a sense of what the FBIS Africa platform can do. But at the end of the day, the data is only as valuable as the data we can put into it and mobilize into it. And that's where we as a community can hopefully work together to increase the occurrence records and make meaningful contributions for our managing and protecting our incredible resources that we have in Africa. Jim, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks.
Thanks, Helen. That was a really nice comprehensive overview, and great to see that so many people are still with us. So we have a little bit of time left to answer questions and for discussion. So yeah, feel free to raise a hand or pop a question in the chat. In the meantime, Laban had a question in the chat and mentioned that there are a lot of freshwater biodiversity data lying around. And his question is twofold. Firstly, how secure will data be that are uploaded to FBIS Africa platform? And secondly, is there a sustainability plan for the platform beyond the project? They've contributed to other efforts that have ended by disappointing many. Helen, I wonder if you could comment on that.
Can everyone just mute themselves? I'm battling to hear. Can you mute Jean, John, Jim?
There we go. Shall I repeat the question?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Sorry. Or you must I answer?
Yeah, I would like to have a go.
So in terms of security, I mean we've moved. Laban, you from Uganda, right? We've met previously, I think. Is it same Laban? Anyway, the information is stored on a cloud server, which is obviously secure. It's got all the regular security. But by sharing your data to the FBIS Africa platform, you acknowledge it's going to be available for everyone to use, and accessible not only to yourself but to the collective group. This is a 4-year project, but we've developed a sustainability plan for all of the various FBIMS platforms where we've shifted to a multi-tenant model. So in that way, there are a number of organizations and a number of platforms that are collectively sharing the cost of maintaining a platform, such as FBIS Africa and FBIS South Africa and various others, which I won't go into. And this was specifically done because of all the issues one has had with sustainability and platforms that have been developed in the past, where the funding has ended, and it's sometimes been with a government institution, and there've been issues with proprietary and various other issues that have resulted in the data system just folding and all the valuable data going essentially being lost to users until it was remobilized in another lifetime. But we've spent a lot of time focusing on how we can overcome that. And so this multi-tenant model, sustainability model, is the way that we are going towards. And we've got like 5 or 6 tenants already, and that ensures that the load, the job of keeping the lights on, or the job of creating funding to keep the platforms going, is sustainable because it's shared across a number of organizations and platforms, and the cost therefore per platform is low, relatively speaking. And then on the FBIS Africa specifically, because we've got some really strong partners, we're developing a specific sustainability plan to create that financial model within business plans for example, the bigger organizations, TNC, WWF, Africa Parks, etc. So that'll be the focus of the last 3 years of our project. I don't know if I've answered that adequately.
Thanks, Helen. No, I think it's a very comprehensive answer. We're almost at the end of our meeting time slot, and yeah, a reminder to everybody that we will be sharing a recording of the session. For those who missed it, there's been a request for a family photo. I think maybe we'll hold that over to the to the next call. But I love it. That's a great idea. Yeah, thanks for that suggestion. We'll plan that for the next one, and yeah, hopefully this is the start of a really useful and enjoyable community centered around these freshwater biodiversity data sets in Africa, and a platform that helps access them. So thank you all for becoming a part of it, and you'll be hearing a lot more from us over the next months and years. And yeah, one of our goals really is to create as much opportunity as possible for you to get to know the platform, to make suggestions about how it could be refined. And yeah, we really just want data users across Africa to get the most out of this and improve their data access. So thanks for joining. Thanks for taking us up on the offer to join the network. I don't see any more questions. I see a lot of encouraging emojis from everyone. So thanks for the support. It's great to see all of that. We have a recommendation from Olalekan in the chat, who has said recommendations integrating a participatory a GIS system will help local communities to provide sustainable data. So we'll add that to the notes and discuss that with our technical team. Thanks for that. And thanks for all the encouragement in the chat from everybody. Iban, Ernest, Bertrand, Matt, Phoebe, Tim, Salumu. Thanks, everybody. Unless there are any more hands, final questions, I think this feels like a great place to leave it. So, yep, on behalf of us and our partners at Cartosa, thanks everyone for your time, and we're sure we'll be seeing you all again soon. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Kindly, which email was supposed to be used when adding members?
Yes,
Okay,
we've put that in the chat. Did you receive it?
okay, thank you, thank you.
Great.